Hi, Adrian here, full-time teacher of the Alexander Technique. And today's video is very much inspired by my last one on what I called self-environment unity, taking our environment and us in it as a singular entity, and that's how we function together. Now, I'm breaking a bit of a rule of thumb, my own sort of rule of thumb for doing these videos, and that normally I always assume my audience is new to the Alexander Technique. In this case, and it's going to be a bit of a one-off, this is really for my colleagues and people who've been studying the Alexander Technique for a while. And you'll see why as I get further into this. So, I've been talking to some of my other colleagues about the idea of self-environment unity. And just to recap on my previous video, it's not a formal Alexander Technique idea. But I've yet to find an Alexander Technique teacher who doesn't agree with it. In fact, my colleague Henry Fagg had in fact written an article previously, well before I'd done my video, discussing it, and he brought up the Neo-Confucius word Cheng to highlight the idea of self-environment unity. Neo-Confucius being in Western terms from 13th century onwards. So it's certainly not really a new idea. And I think it was Mark Jones also let me know that there's an area of psychological study called, I think it's ecological psychology, by a man called J.J. James. Is that right? J.J. Gibson. No, I should remember that. I play guitar, the Gibson guitar. J.J. Gibson. So that's an area of research and psychology for a good 70 years now, looking at very similar ideas, more from a psychological point of view, but how we embed ourselves in our environment to actually be part of it. It doesn't make sense, functional sense, to discriminate between the two. The phrase I've often used is like being a fish in water. If you take a fish out of water, it's basically non-functioning. It makes no sense to discuss a fish's functioning without water. So that aside, what I wondered was, should the Alexander Technique evolve to include new ideas and more recent, well, actually not a new idea, but to include new to the Alexander Technique maybe, ideas that really do sit within the realm of Alexander thinking. It sits there quite comfortably. Should we formally take these ideas on and make them canon, if you like, make them a principle of the Alexander Technique? Or should we just leave things as Alexander left them in 1955? Now, I've always had a slight issue with that, and I'm not suggesting that this self-environment unity should be the one that we add to our list of principles. I think it's a good one, but there's a broader question. Alexander said, throughout his life, his work was a work in progress. So the idea that we stop in 1955, when he died, and fossilise it in amber seems to me to actually dishonour his work in a way. And I think that's a shame. I think there's a place to evolve the Alexander Technique. Only in small ways, I might say. I mean, on the whole, things are fine as they are, you know, it's not a major issue. But I still think it's important to see our work as Alexander teachers as an evolving body of work. Because, you know, as time goes on, we get new research on neuro research, etc. You know, we want to make sure that what we're teaching is in line with what we think is true. And in fairness, the Alexander Technique has been born out of observation, not theory. So we're kind of always covered a bit there. If we're observing behaviour consistently, then, you know, it's human behaviour. It is what it is. So in a way, we'll, as a profession, always be safe to a degree, regardless of latest scientific discoveries. But I do think it's helpful to take these discoveries on board to keep the work alive and present. So I would like to see the idea that we could keep evolving and not fossilising it in amber. Obviously, we'd need consensus, a democratic consensus, and that would take time to achieve. So it would be a very slowly evolving thing for the Alexander technique to take on new ideas. So it's not something that's going to happen overnight or even needs to. Interestingly, as I'm filming this, the Alexander technique profession is having its, what's the word I'm looking for? Convention. Its yearly convention sorry, my brain's being a bit dead today. In Germany, in Berlin. Thank you, brain. Caught up with me eventually. So yes, we're having a convention in Berlin. Lots of my colleagues are getting together in person, also online. There's been some talks online. And I think this would be a fantastic discussion for our profession to have at a convention to say, should we fossilise it in amber or should we incrementally take some ideas on board? And would one of those ideas, seeing as everyone I've spoken to seems to be quite comfortable with it, be self-environment unity, what I call being? So I would be really interested to know, if you are a teacher, whether you think we should just stop at 1955, fossilise it in amber, or whether we should incrementally take new ideas on board, or if not new ideas, additional ideas that we think are very pertinent to our work. And not just pertinent, helpful. They need to be helpful. There's no point just bringing them in if they're not helpful ideas. I personally think self-environment unity as a concept is a very helpful idea. It gives us reason for our functioning. It gives us context for our functioning. So, let me know what you think. I'll be really interested to know. All right, take care. Bye.